My name is Russell Mullenberg, and this is Eat This Word, a weekly program where I serve up bite-sized bits of Bible. The passage we're have been looking at the last couple of weeks is 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 9 and 10. This wonderful description of what it means, what we become as the people of God, as Christians, as a part of the church, when we find our identity in Jesus Christ. So it says this about us, those of us who believe, if you're a believer in Jesus. But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you had received mercy. So this wonderful list, 6 different descriptions of who we are as the people of God. The first week we looked at the descriptions in verse 9. We saw that these titles, chosen people, royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, take us back to Exodus 19, the constitutional convention for the nation of Israel, where the covenant charter is signed between God and Moses and the people at Mount Sinai. And God describes how he took them on eagle's wings out of Egypt so that they could be this chosen race, this holy nation of a kingdom of priests. Then last week we looked at the descriptions in verse 10. You are the people of God. You have received mercy. And we tied that back to the prophet Hosea and the prophecy, the living parable of Hosea's family life, really. That story, a very sad story, it's a story of God's judgment on his people, where Hosea and his unfaithful wife are having these children who receive really these dreadful names. Lo Ruhamah, she shall not receive mercy. Lo Ami, not my people. And so this is God's judgment on Israel for their unfaithfulness to him. But even in that chapter, there's this sort of promise that a time will be coming when the people will be God's people again, where they'll receive mercy. And we see that now, that description, that the not a people have become a people, no mercy have received mercy. And so I want to look at this week, just real briefly with you, is the end of verse 9 there, where it talks about why. Why has God calling us into this new identity? Why has God shown his mercy to us and made us his special people? And it's found in this phrase. The Bible loves to answer the question why, purpose, why we are given the privileges we're given, what God wants for us, his design for us. We find that here in this phrase, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness and into his wonderful light. The first word you notice there, the word that, that's the purpose phrase, so that, with the idea of, so we are now this new people, this new identity for this reason, that for this purpose. So this, when you're looking for your calling, when you say, what does God want from me? It's a phrase like this, it's a verse like this that tells us God's intention for you in your life, that you may declare, proclaim. God's purpose for us is that we would be people who share a message. And I think here both by word, in the things we say and speak, as well as by deed, in the way we live, in the witness that our lives present to others, that we may declare that our calling, our purpose is one of preaching the good news of Jesus, of sharing the good news of the gospel, of living it out in a way that makes it attractive to others. So God has given us this identity that we might declare the praises, the excellencies, the good news. A Christian's calling is to be a bearer of good news. Really, as Christians, our calling is not so much to point out what's wrong with the world or to emphasize things that need to change or need to be fixed. And sometimes we do need to do that. Sometimes the Bible does correct things that are wrong. But really our calling is one not of declaring what we're against as much as headlining what we're for, headlining the beauty of who God is, what God has done for us, His grace in our lives. And so that's God's purpose for us, that we might declare, that we might proclaim the excellencies, the good news, the praises of Him who here called us out of darkness and into His wonderful light. So we talk about the one who has, by His calling, given us a new life, given us a new identity. Such a wonderful phrase, that He called us out of darkness and into the light. I think of the story of Jesus and Lazarus. How Jesus comes to the tomb of his friend Lazarus who has died. And outside that tomb, it is a scene. Right? There are professional mourners that have come up from Jerusalem. They're weeping, they're wailing. There are critics of Jesus who have come onto the scene at Bethany to see what Jesus is going to do so they can find fault with Him. There's Lazarus' sisters, Mary and Martha, who are distraught with grief. And so outside the tomb, as Jesus stands there, it is a scene. But think about what it would have been like inside the tomb. Darkness. Smelly, the stench of death. For Lazarus, of course, not conscious of anything at all. He's dead. But inside the tomb, it is utter darkness. It is death. It is hopeless. And Jesus stands outside of the tomb and He calls into that darkness. He calls, Lazarus, come out. And it is the calling of Jesus that wakens Lazarus up. And he stands up wrapped in bandages and he stumbles out of the darkness into the light of day. And that picture, that illustration of what Jesus did and his calling, breathing life into Lazarus, that is an illustration of what this verse is saying happens to all of us when we give ourselves to Jesus, that we are in darkness, that we are in death, and God, it's by virtue of His calling our names that we waken up and we are able to step out of this darkness and into the light. So we look at the verse as a whole. What Peter is saying is that we now have become this chosen people, this royal priesthood, this set-apart nation, special to God. Once outside of no identity, now we become God's people. Once outside of mercy and beyond forgiveness, we receive mercy. All of those things have happened so that we can become people who declare a message, who proclaim good news, the praises, the excellency of the one who by His very calling to us has brought us from the darkness into the light. And so that's our purpose. That's God's purpose for us, by word and deed, to share this excellent story of what God has done for us.